Hello, and welcome to Bonus. This is episode number 6, and oh, would you look at that? We've got a stripe now. So I guess that buys me a few more thumbnail combinations. That should be good for another year at least, hopefully. And then I'll probably just go into 2 stripes or something like that. Anyway, today I've got some Super Motherload for you, which is an indie title running on the PS4, which arrived on the Friday that it was supposed to, you'd be pleased to know. Thank you very much, Amazon Co. UK. And of course, as well as getting the PS4, I also started the Weapon Guide series, and with a flurry of 3 episodes no less. So let's talk about this series, because this is kind of an awkward one. And in the production of this series, I have slaughtered a lot of sacred cows, shall we say. Now, Ghosts it's kind of the dying embers of the Call of Duty franchise, and the level of interest in the game is down compared to previous years. The game is kind of awkwardly straddling both the previous gen and the, well, I suppose now the current gen, and the strain of developing for 6 platforms simultaneously, I think, is showing slightly. I know the PC version is, shall we say, subpar, and while the next-gen titles are okay, they are, on some fronts, underwhelming. I mean, while the textures, no doubt, are a little bit more textury than the previous-gen version, at a first glance, the games look very similar on both platforms, which I suppose is testament to how well optimized the PS3 and Xbox 360 versions are, but, you know, there we are. So as I say, dying embers of the Call of Duty franchise I think would be a fair assessment. But there are some next-gen stars on the horizon. Titanfall is one that I'm particularly looking forward to coming in March. But this puts me in a bit of a predicament, you see, because, well, the Call of Duty series normally is 1 a week and it takes, well, about a year to complete. And if I did that, I'd be halfway through by the time Titanfall came. So I needed a different strategy this year. I needed videos that were quicker to produce because, well, simply put, I can't afford to spend a week doing each weapon. And to be perfectly fair, with the lull of interest in Call of Duty, I think it would be foolish to do so even if there were nothing on the horizon. So I'm placed in this difficult position where I've got to maximise turnaround while minimising disappointment. And that kind of puts you at odds with, well, past me, because, well, that guy, he spent a week on every single video. So let's talk economy, let's talk about some of the things which I did for the series to make them easier to produce. On the first front, number of episodes. With Black Ops 2, I did all of the primary weapons, all of the secondary weapons, and I even did attachments as well. The attachments were an easy cull. Slightly less easy to cut were the secondary weapons, but I think, you know, there's just a few pistols and a few launchers. The secondaries are not really 2 major parts of Call of Duty Ghosts, so I don't think anyone will really miss them. Beyond this, I'm also not going to do the combat knife or the riot shield, because I don't want to, because they're awful weapons and I would just be frustrated. That leaves us with a nice round 30 episodes, which is down from, 42 for Black Ops 1 and for Modern Warfare 2, and about 70 odd for Black Ops 2. Another sacred cow slain was the duration of the videos. The Black Ops 2 guides ranged from anywhere from about 8 minutes to 12 minutes, which is a nice, meaty length. But longer videos take longer to write, they take longer to edit, they take longer to render, they take longer to upload. They're just all round more clumsy to work with. So of course I was looking to, you know, take any efficiency gains I could on this front. But the actual scripts are very, very similar to the Black Ops 2 ones. The stats section is almost identical, the conclusion is almost identical. The middle section's been cut back, but that's, I think, got rid of a lot of repetition. By only talking about the really important parts of the build, I don't have to go over the same stuff over and over again. It got a little bit repetitive, I think, with Black Ops 2. So the cuts here save me a couple of minutes and make for a tighter, better paced script. All in all, I've got to say I'm reasonably happy with how the final scripts came out. They're 5 minutes long or thereabouts, some of them run a little longer at 6 minutes, some of them come in no less than 4.5 minutes for some of the less interesting weapons. But they're all well paced and they maintain their interestingness throughout the script. And they do deliver everything you would need to know about any given gun. And that's what they're designed for. They're designed to be efficient game guides. Watch this 5 minutes and you'll be equipped with pretty much everything you need to know about that given gun. And I know what you're thinking, but Stu, what about the elephant in the room? That final sacred cow? The other forced metaphor? The real life history? Where is that, Stu? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, where is it, Stu? Oh no! Quite a few of you lamenting the loss of the real life history section. More than I was expecting, I've got to say. I was probably thinking, well, it would be the duration or maybe the quality of the gameplay that people will complain about. That's another thing, I'm recording fewer. I mean, I got the Black Ops 2 weapons gold. I recorded maybe up to 8 hours of gameplay to get that, but I've got a hard cap of 2 hours of gameplay in Ghosts. So far, nobody's really noticed. There's no triple sprays, no quad feeds, but no, nobody cares. Okay, fair enough. No, you're all lamenting the loss of the history, despite the fact that it would really foul up the pacing, I think. Like I say, these are designed to be really ultra-efficient game guides, and I didn't really want to turn anybody off who's maybe not interested in the history of the firearms. So anyway, yeah, I have noticed the people saying, "Oh, Stu, bring back the history." Yes, I have noticed, but it's not going to come back. The format is, I'm happy with it. I am genuinely happy with it. I think it is a nice, well-paced, efficient format to do a weapon guide in. But your comments have not fallen on deaf ears, and, well, of course, I'm now thinking, well, actually, there's a sizable portion of my audience who is interested in firearm history. And I would very much like to do some content relevant to that. In fact, I have an idea. I'll share it with you. It's kind of a successor to Behind the Lines, except it wouldn't be a single video. I'd quite like to do an event, like an entire week of videos devoted to one gun. As some of you might know, the second episode of Behind the Lines was going to be on the AK-47. A legendary gun, of course, huge cultural impact, and I reckon I could do quite a lot with that. So, what I'd like to do is, instead of one monolithic 15 to 20 minute video, which takes me a month to put together, I'd like to fragment it into maybe 5-minute sections. Turn it into an event, call it AK Week or something. Each video would be standalone, but together they would form like this composite. So there'd maybe be one video on the actual history of the AK, maybe another on how the AK operates and, you know, how it came to be such a reliable weapon. I'd also like to look at the history of the AK-47 in video games, so I could go over some notable appearances of the gun in video gaming history. And maybe just for funsies, I could do a COD 4 weapon guide, like a throwback on the AK-47. You know, it's kind of a special one-off. These are all kind of nebulous ideas, but you kind of see where I'm going with this. You know, like it'll be a collection of videos that all kind of complement each other, but they're all different and they all stand alone. Of course, this would be a lot of work, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but this is an idea that I have that would cater to those who are interested in firearms history. Anyway, Stu, you do go on. There's 7 minutes and no questions. I suppose I should say a bit on Super Motherload as well. I love this game. All you do, right, you're this little digger thing, you dig into the ground, you mine minerals, and then you run out of fuel, you have to go back to the surface, then you sell them off, you buy more fuel, you upgrade your rig, and then that's it, that's the game, and it's brilliant. And then eventually, I've played the game quite a bit, this is just the start of it. Eventually you end up looking for really rare minerals near the planet's core. Awfully good fun, probably the best PS4 game I've played thus far. Anyway, on with the questions! DJ Danny Wynn says, "Are you excited for the World Cup, Stu? If so, who do you want to win?" I'm moderately excited. I'm not hugely into football, but you know, it's the World Cup, isn't it? I'll keep tabs on some of the England games, I suppose, and I might tune in if we actually get out of the group stage. Other than that, though, I'd quite like to see Belgium do well, because I understand they don't often qualify. I always like the underdog, and I always like Belgium, so I'll be keeping an eye on them as well. 117 Recon Ninja says, "Hey Stu, have you heard of the Nvidia Shield? What do you think of the concept? Do you have one? Do you think you want to get one?" The Shield. It's like a little Android device that also you can stream games from your PC. Now, I have to be honest, I'm not hugely into handheld gaming. I mean, maybe it's because I work from home, but I don't really travel anywhere with any regularity. So handhelds are kind of a waste on me because I'm never too far away from my home console. I have a PSP, but I never really used it. I watched a few videos on it on longer journeys, and I played Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories, but that was about it. So the Shield doesn't really hold too much in the way of appeal for me. I mean, especially given the fact that it's just an Android device. I mean, I already have one of those. I've got a tablet, I've got a phone. If I wanted to get a gaming handheld thing, I'd probably get a 3DS. So no, not really a fan of the Nvidia Shield at all. I can't really see it being a commercial success, and I certainly don't know anyone who wants one. Luke Greaves says, "I'm curious about your pronunciation of Forza. How come you pronounce it Forza?" Well, the glib answer would be, because that's how it's pronounced. I mean, really, when you start up Forza 5, there's a little movie that says, "Welcome to Forza." So it's clearly the way that the developers wanted it to be pronounced, and, well, you know, I'm willing to concede to their judgment. It's also the way the Italians say the word, or thereabouts, so it's correct on multiple counts. But having said that, I wouldn't think any less of somebody who said Forza. I mean, if you're English, it's a perfectly logical way of saying the word. Cameron Naugel says, "What's your favourite car in Forza 5? And if you could own any car in Forza, what would it be and why?" I bought a Formula 1 car in Forza, the Lotus 2012 thing. And those things are wonderful to drive. They're like go-karts. They're go-karts that go, you know, nearly 200 miles an hour, but still, they are glued to the road. They've got phenomenal amounts of grip. I'm sure in real life they'd be absolutely horrifying to drive, you know, with the incredible speed, but in Forza they're a dream. They're brilliant. I love them. Other favourites include, I like the Lotus Exige. It's a nice nippy light car, although it's almost too light. You can feel it. If you put too much welly in the corners, you can just sort of feel it going sideways. I like the F40 as well, the Ferrari. It's a classic supercar with a fantastic back end, and it just tears away from the apex of the corner. I'm a fan of the super lights. I like the KTM crossbow. I like the Aerial Atom, and it's not in Forza 5, but I also love Caterhams. Now, if you were to tell me, Stu, you can have any of these cars, the logical me would probably say, take the Formula 1 car, you could sell it and buy many other cars. But as far as a car to own and to drive, I'd probably take something like a Caterham. Horrifically impractical, but I'm sure it's fun to drive. Otherwise, something more comfortable, I like a Maserati. What's their Grand Tourer called? The Grand Sport or something. The Quattroporte, that's a nice one. The Alfa Romeo Competizione, that's another nice one, I'd take that one. And I like Spyker. They're a Dutch company, aren't they? I like Spyker because they're completely off the wall. Anyway, let's wrap up these Forza questions with one last one. Big Temper asks, can you do some Forza videos, please? I'm thinking about doing 1 or 2 specials once I'm done with Ghosts, because I will have a few weeks, I think, before Titanfall comes out. I'm not sure what it'll be. Maybe it'll be individual car profiles, or I have kind of this vague idea to do like a compilation of interesting facts about some of the cars in Forza 5. Mostly because I can say this video is fortified with 45 Forza 5 facts. I mean, this is assuming, of course, I can dig up 45 facts about the cars in Forza. So that one might come to fruition, but I don't know yet. I don't know. I'm still doing Ghosts, and I will be for the next, 7 weeks or so? Maybe 6 weeks. Speaking of Ghosts, I actually have a free-for-all gameplay here for you. It's actually, I don't want to spoil it, but it's a chem strike in free-for-all. And do you know what happened? I lost the audio for this. My black magic corrupted the audio, so I can't use any of these clips in my weapon guides. How's that? I lost a day's worth of work. Thank you very much, black magic. It captured the video just fine, but the audio just... digital noise. So for the benefit of your ears, I have muted that. It's a little slow-paced, this free-for-all, but you know, the maps are big and people like to camp with their IEDs and all the rest of it. So it takes me a little while to find 25 people, never mind kill them. Anyway, back to the questions. Golden Draga says, Stu, you call yourself a Brit and you trust Game? I'm sure you get your news from the Sun too. Game is overpriced and unreliable. Sex is where it's at, yo. And yes, it is pronounced sex. That's how they actually pronounce it. Stands for computer exchange. Yes, I had a bit of a rant on Game last week, and yeah, I'm probably never going to use them again. But let me defend Game a little bit. Not too much, because they're awful and you shouldn't use them. But let me defend them and my reasoning for still continuing to use them up until a couple of weeks ago. You see, for me, Game and the purple logo, they kind of have a special place in my heart. I come from an era in which computer games were not an accepted or common hobby. I come from an era where, in order to purchase video games, I had to go to some pretty obscure shops. In the late 1980s, if you wanted a game for your ZX Spectrum or compatible system, there were maybe, if you went into town, there'd be a couple of shops that would sell them, and there'd be a couple of racks of tapes and other miscellany. I remember for the longest time, there were only 2 places in Preston where I could buy computer games. One of them was, it was actually a pharmacist, a chain in Britain called Boots. They're kind of more than a pharmacy, they've got an optician in there as well. It's kind of a little bit like a department store and a pharmacy had a baby, and that baby decided to be a retail chain. So yeah, basically, yeah, they were a pharmacy, they were an opticians, but they also sold electronical goods, beauty goods, the usual stuff the pharmacies sell as well. But every Saturday afternoon, when every family inexorably went into town to do their shopping, I would take glee in going upstairs in Boots in Preston and rifling through the cassette racks. There was one other place that sold games, but it was a bit far out of town. A now defunct newsagent called John Menzies. They used to be down in the Miller Arcade in Preston. They too had a decent selection of Spectrum games. And that's pretty much all I had. Occasionally you'd find dodgy games down Preston Market, but for the most part, if you wanted to buy video games, your choice of where to buy these video games was very limited. Until 1992, I think it was. I had a Commodore Amiga at this time, and I travelled into Manchester to do a spot of shopping into the Arndale Centre. And I encountered this shop, which was unbeknownst to me at the time, and the shop was simply called game. That's like, what, just game? Literally all they sell is video games. They're not a pharmacist as well. They don't sell newspapers. They don't sell books. Just games. It's kind of difficult to explain, but it's like, you've had this hobby of video games for maybe 5 years. I mean, I was young at this point, so I'm not sure if it really counts. But you've had this hobby for a while, and it kind of feels as though like it's a really fringe hobby. And then all of a sudden, you discover there's a retail store that caters exclusively to you and your hobby. And it's like, man, this is brilliant. I can still remember the games that I bought on my very first visit to Game. One of them was The Secret of Monkey Island, which is a fantastic game. And best of all, that game actually came with an additional free game. And I picked F-19 Stealth Fighter, which was actually a pretty spiffy flight sim. Now, I'm not normally big into flight sims, but I was less fussy back in the day. I'd take any free game. So that was my very first transaction in Game, and it's one of my, I suppose, favourite gaming moments. It was this realisation that video games are not just some sort of weird geeky hobby, but they're actually quite mainstream. I mean, they're very much in the mainstream now, but like I say, 20 years ago, it was different. So that little pleasant story, that's why I still have this sort of romantic attachment to Game. It's difficult to shake off, really. Sadly, these days, of course, retail is dying, and Game's online presence barely scratches average, which is a shame because the brand's been around for an awfully long time. 6321 Timmy says, Mr. Brown, what should I name my baby? A unisex name will be good, as we do not know the sex. Thanks, buddy. Oh, you don't want me picking a name for a baby. I mentioned names, I think it was last week, and, well, one of them I mentioned is unisex. Artemis. I like Artemis. I would name a baby Artemis. Maybe the girlfriend wouldn't, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But, if you wanted to use Artemis, that would be my recommendation. It's a nice name. I think it's a female name, principally. It refers to a goddess of the hunt or something. I think Artemis is a famous mythological hunter. Huntress, I suppose, would be the term. I'm not sure if the gods were particularly sensitive when it came to gender-specific pronouns. Anyway, but I won't be offended if you don't use that. But that's what I'm going to say. Artemis. The last Kusagari says, I fudging love that tealish colour he uses. Someone please tell me the actual name for that colour. I love it. Well, the hex code is 269E9A. But as far as named colours, the official Xbox Ahoy brand colour, which I like to sometimes jokingly call electric seafoam, is probably closest to a hue known as Persian green in real life. I think it's a colour the Persians/Iranians use in the production of carpets and in pottery as well. And it's a really nice colour. I do like it. That's why I picked it. That's why it's my brand colour. I'm not sure if I prefer the XA green or the AX pink, though. I'm not sure which one I prefer, because I do actually really like pink. A nice, fully saturated, intense pink is it's a nice colour. In fact, it might be one of my favourite colours. But don't tell anyone, because pink's a girl's colour. Melly SMS says, do you enjoy visiting concerts/festivals, Glastonbury, etc.? Festivals? No, not really a big fan of festivals. I mean, they're incredibly expensive and they're normally pretty uncomfortable to boot. Nothing quite like sleeping in a muddy field with thousands of other revellers and having to use the same porter cabins. I prefer more creature comforts, and I think anybody who would claim otherwise is lying. Concerts, on the other hand, I do find much more enjoyable. I think the last one I went to was about a year ago now. I went to see Metric when they came to Manchester. I would go to more, but the girlfriend and I have very different taste when it comes to music. Osprey Pab says, did you catch the Charlie Brooker show on Games, Stu? I did, yes. I'm a big fan of Charlie Brooker and his work, and I like the fact that he's trying to bring video games onto mainstream television. So his program, it was basically, it was kind of cheap content. It was like a rundown of like 25 video games that changed the world. And as is the fashion with these things, it was mostly 90% just minor celebrities talking about certain games. I mean, I don't blame them. I'd love to do the same thing. I'd love to be invited on to talk about games and, get paid for it. As far as presentation was concerned, it was entertaining enough. It was a bit padded out. I mean, in my brief history of video games, I covered, 90 games in 20 minutes? And this covered 25 games in an hour and a half. But I shan't complain too much because, it gets games into the mainstream, and I always like to see that. Neil Rose asks, have you got a chem strike yet? Well, as you might have noticed in the gameplay behind this, yes, I have. I've only had one so far, and I lost the audio to it. But it happened. I've still got it. I can keep up with the kids. Now, I'm not saying my opposition was the hottest, And I think the combination of Amplify and Dead Silence on my specialist killstreak chain did a lot of the work. But still, a good game is a good game. So, with the launch of the Chemstrike, that brings us very close to the end of this bonus footage. As ever, if you'd like your questions answered next week, please leave them in the comments below and I'll pick them up, or I'll pick up the more interesting ones. As far as video output is concerned, you should have the CBJ MS video on my main channel right now. The AK-12 will be going live on Friday, the Vector CRB on Saturday, and the FAD on Sunday. That works out 4 weapon guides a week. I think that's sustainable. And it gives you full weekend coverage with one midweek, just to prevent you from going too hungry. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, farewell.